were destined to be the Empire's holy light, yet their paths diverged toward heaven and hell. Radiant Diana possessed divine healing and a golden heart, effortlessly charming every soul she met. While Diana basked in glory, Belle struggled desperately just to mend a simple graze. Thirsting for the warmth of a single kind gaze, Belle staged reckless pranks, yet she only reaped cold glares and bitter soul-crushing scorn. A saint candidate, to the world she was merely a tragic and laughable outcast. Diana was the blinding sun, leaving Belle to wither in the cold, forgotten shadows. In this pious land, the saint was a living god. Every orphan fought to shine. Sharing the same gift made the comparisons between Belle and Diana inevitable and cruel. Belle clawed for a scrap of recognition, drowning in the pressure to be enough. She dreamed of victory until Duke 𝐒𝐻𝐻 claimed the perfect Diana as his own daughter. Watching the golden carriage depart, Belle finally felt the crushing weight of their divided worlds. The world treasures only the exceptional. The mediocre are destined to be forgotten. Years of hardship stripped Belle of everything, even the holy spark of her healing touch. With her life sight gone, she expected to rot away in the dust of history. Then the legendary Duke 𝐂𝐻𝐿 arrived, specifically choosing Belle for his noble son Edwin. Fear chilled her blood. Once they realized her power was gone, they would discard her. But one look into Edwin's deep, piercing gaze made her heart race with uncontrollable hope. He was a vision of nobility, a dazzling prince stepped straight from a fairy tale. "I want this one," she declared. The terrified priest bowed in a frantic, desperate apology. Thus Belle entered the lion's den, her heart fluttering with dreams of a grand future. But the dream was a lie. Beyond the Duke, she remained a reviled, lonely ghost. Then one afternoon she caught the sharp thorns of a maid's cruel, whispered gossip. Diana had saved the queen, ascended as saint, and was now Edwin's beautiful fiancée. Rage exploded. Blinded by envy, Belle attacked, dragging the maid down in a storm of fury. Diana again, she was trapped forever in that girl's suffocating, perfect shadow. And now she had to watch her only light be stolen by her eternal rival. At her lowest point, a mysterious shadow appeared, offering a path to ruin Diana's life. "Do you wish to reclaim your throne and tear Diana from Edwin's arms?" He whispered of a bloody coup, accusing Diana's family of plotting the emperor's sudden demise. He offered a heavy envelope. "Behold the undeniable evidence of their ultimate betrayal. Just plant the poison." Belle hesitated, sensing a trap, yet her blinding envy won. She crossed the line of no return, unaware she was walking into a spider's web. At the grand banquet, the trap finally snapped shut around her. Diana collapsed, coughing crimson blood while pointing a trembling finger at the horrified Belle. Poison was found in her possession. In an instant, she was shackled like an animal. Rebel documents appeared in her room. The verdict was final treason against the Empire. Belle was just a disposable pawn in a game played by monsters and kings. Her desperate jealousy was the perfect weapon to destroy the Duke and the Crown Prince. The century-long legacy of the 𝐂𝐻𝐿 bloodline crumbled into ash, all because of Belle's foolish, desperate heart. Facing the executioner's blade, she realized she was just a pathetic villain in a cheap drama. Her life ended in a flash, never knowing she was merely ink in a novel. Diana was the fated heroine destined for adoration and the hearts of every powerful man. And Belle, she was the wicked foil meant only to burn so the heroine could shine. Belle's heart was heavy with remorse. Her past life was a wasteland of envy and bitterness. She prayed for a second chance. Miraculously, destiny answered her plea with a new beginning. Mirroring a youthful reflection, Belle realized she'd returned, but wait, the novel's timeline felt strangely fractured. In the original book, the Duke's house never crumbled because of her presence. After her arrest, they'd simply severed ties to protect the family's noble reputation. Yet in her reality, they fell with her. Why did her life bring them ruin? Suffocating guilt washed over her. Their tragic end was a burden she alone carried. Suddenly, a harsh voice interrupted. The teacher demanded she copy scriptures alongside the other candidate. "Behold Diana's perfection, adopted and adored. Then look at your wretched, messy scribbles. How dare you even dream of competing?" Belle knew this woman all too well. This was the same tormentor from her past. But this time, Belle's gaze didn't waver. Enraged by the girl's defiance, the teacher struck her down, followed by violent coughing. Belle watched coldly. The woman's life force flickered blue, the unmistakable sign of a fatal disease. These were her healing eyes, a gift to see the soul's health. Long ago, she predicted this death, only to be branded a demon and locked away in shadows. Even when her prophecy came true, Her freedom was brief and cruel. They imprisoned her for 2 years, and slowly her divine power withered into nothing. In this new life, silence would be her shield. She'd never interfere with fate again. No more fatal errors. With a sneer, the teacher vanished, leaving Belle in peace. Armed with memories of the future, she began rewriting her destiny with a new strategy. Back then, Diana's light made her rebel. She chose to be a villain out of spite. That rebellion kept her trapped. Now she'd be perfect anything to escape this orphanage forever. Freedom was within reach. Belle opened her dusty notebook with grim determination. Confidence faded as she saw her work. Her handwriting was still a chaotic, ghostly mess. She had mastered letters at the Duke's manor. Why was her hand failing her now? In the past, her frustration often boiled over into tears and shattered pens. Edwin was always there, gently guiding her hand and whispering words of encouragement. Even the Duke visited, offering warm praise for her crooked letters and messy ink. Under their care, her frozen heart slowly began to melt. The mischievous girl died, and a daughter who truly loved them was born. Those golden days were her only treasure, a sanctuary she longed to return to. She craved their faces. She would atone for every sin and right every wrong. Within a week, the orphanage was buzzing. The troublemaker had become unrecognizable. She was a new person. Even the most wretched meals were finished with silent grace. She didn't lash out at the skeptics. She offered only calm, patient explanations. Her newfound kindness left the others absolutely speechless and bewildered. If she changed herself, maybe fate would lead her back to the Duke's embrace. A teacher rushed in, thrusting a clean dress into Belle's startled hands. A noble visitor was waiting. Confusion clouded Belle's mind. Who could it be? The timing was all wrong. As the hinges creaked open, her breath hitched in shock. There they stood, the family she had longed for every single day and night. Destiny had shifted forward. She fought back a tidal wave of overwhelming emotion. With a graceful curtsy, she introduced herself. The Duke watched her with eyes full of warmth. The priest then introduced young Edwin to the girl. Seeing him nearly broke her composure. As she bowed, he leaned in unexpectedly close. "Do you truly have nothing to say?" he gestured to himself. "Do you not want me?" The question pierced Belle's heart instantly. Memories of their first meeting in her past life surged forward. A tidal wave of tears instantly blurred Belle's vision. The Duke signaled Edwin to soothe her, but Belle's mind was a frantic whirlwind of confusion and chaos. Why those specific words? Was it possible that Edwin also carried the heavy burden of their forgotten past? If he truly remembered the past, he should have ordered her death. Why search for her with such persistence? Nearby, the priest desperately stammered apologies to the Duke for Belle's sudden and improper loss of composure. He assumed the Duke's cold, iron-fisted reputation had terrified her. Belle scoffed internally at the priest's utter ignorance. The Duke was never the monster rumors described. He was gentle, refusing to discard her even when her power faded. Fearing further embarrassment, the priest suggested swapping Belle for a more obedient child to satisfy the Duke's request. But the Duke's refusal was immediate and firm. "You must understand the gravity of this situation. This girl is our final hope. Your previous choices failed to break the curse." A memory flickered in Belle's mind. In her past life, this was the exact moment the Duke's youngest son, Joshua, fell deathly ill. The Duke had summoned every legendary physician in the land, yet none could offer a spark of hope. Desperate, he turned to the orphanage, paying a fortune to secure Diana's famous healing touch for his son. Yet even Diana's formidable light could only stall the inevitable, merely buying the young boy a little more time. Joshua still passed away when Belle turned 7, but why seek her now instead of the gifted Diana? Was it possible? Did they truly possess the memories of the tragic life they once lived? The Duke approached her softly. "Belle, I have a son, a brilliant boy who needs your gift. Will you save him?" "Young Master Joshua," she whispered. She recalled seeing his face during a crowded orphanage event a year ago. He had been accidentally injured back then, and Belle had secretly used her magic to mend his wounds. She had long since forgotten that small act of kindness, but now a spark of hope flared within her. This was her ultimate chance to repay the Duke's kindness. Summoning her courage, she spoke her truth. "My power is weak compared to Diana's. I cannot guarantee a miracle for the young master, but I will give him my everything. Please let me try." She bowed low, awaiting the Duke's final judgment. "Foolish child, we are the ones pleading for your help." Edwin's blunt remark made Belle look up in surprise. Flustered by her reaction, Edwin stammered, "Why the tears again? I haven't even done anything wrong." The Duke knelt before her, offering his hand like a sacred vow. Will you return to the estate with us, Belle? Belle wept with pure joy. Yes, I am willing. Fate had finally granted her a second chance at life. She vowed never to betray his trust. Suddenly, the priest urged the Duke to board the carriage first. He requested a private word with Belle, but Edwin blocked his path. Speak your mind right here and now. The priest faltered, claiming he only had final instructions. The Duke nodded and stepped away with his son. Edwin lingered for a final moment. If that man troubles you, find me at the carriage immediately. The moment the Duke vanished from sight, the priest's saintly mask crumbled into a wicked sneer. Do the bare minimum, he hissed. Return the moment he looks stable. Belle saw his true nature clearly now. This man of God was nothing but a greedy snake who cared nothing for a dying child's life. His only fear was losing the Duke's massive fortune if the treatment failed to show results. So, this was the dark unspoken law the orphanage had always followed behind closed doors. They intentionally prolonged suffering, milking every coin from the desperate for as long as possible. Diana was their ultimate weapon, the only one allowed to perform miracles for the elite and powerful. An unimportant girl like Belle was merely a shadow used to make Diana's reputation shine even brighter. Even Diana couldn't save him, yet the priest preferred the boy die rather than let Belle truly succeed. To him, Diana's flawless reputation as the strongest healer was worth more than a child's soul. But Belle would no longer be a puppet, and what if I actually cure the young master's illness? The priest recoiled in fury. Have you lost your mind? Do you wish to be imprisoned like 𝐂𝐨𝐫? At the mention of that name, the haunting image of that boy flashed vividly in Belle's mind. 𝐂𝐸 once held a divine gift, but the dark confessional stole his voice forever. Now, the priest turned his cold threats toward Belle. An evil spirit corrupted 𝐂𝐸, stripping away his divine grace. But you, Belle, are a candidate for the holy title of saintess. Total obedience ensures the heavens' favor will shine even brighter upon you. These honeyed lies echoed from her past life. Once she foolishly believed she could outshine Diana if she only tried harder. The truth was now clear. Those innocent souls were never the ones harboring demons. The real demon was the greedy man before her. Masking her burning rage, Belle chose to play the part of a submissive puppet. Edwin was already waiting by the orphanage gates long before Belle finally arrived. What did that priest say? He questioned. Belle remembered how Edwin loathed everything tied to the temple in her previous life. Yet fate eventually bound him to Diana, the woman who had become the exalted saintess. Back then, their love must have been genuine. Belle fought to bury the bitter ache rising in her chest. It was nothing. He simply urged me to care for young Master Joshua. Just then the carriage reached the Duke's grand estate. Gazing at the familiar, imposing manor, the reality of her rebirth finally sank in. Joshua's life was now hanging by a thread. Without a moment's delay, they rushed to the sick room. A frail boy lay there barely clinging to his final breath. His face was a ghostly mask, bloodless and pale. Mysteriously, crimson continued to seep through his very pores. After a brief exchange, Belle stepped forward to examine Joshua. The bandages on his leg had only just been replaced. Yet, the white fabric was already soaked through with fresh, warm blood. Belle recalled that in her past life, Joshua died of heart failure, not blood loss. She gazed wearily at his chest where orange flames flickered. Only those cursed with a mysterious terminal illness would emit such orange flames visible only to the eye of healing. Was it possible that the constant blood loss had pushed his already fragile heart to the brink of collapse? If that were true, the true source of his suffering was rooted deep within his heart. But how could she treat it? Was a cure even possible? Just as Belle prepared to speak, something else caught her eye. Hovering over Edwin's chest was a small cluster of orange flames, identical to the deadly aura surrounding Joshua. Belle quickly turned her gaze toward the Duke, but there was no such omen visible on him at all. This was a hereditary curse likely passed down from their mother who died young. Belle slapped her face to snap out of it. Now was no time for idle theories. Fortunately, she had detected the symptoms while there was still hope. Edwin's symptoms were still mild, but Joshua was fading fast. As Belle reached for the boy's heart to activate her power, the doors burst open as a man and woman barged inside. It was Joshua's lead attending physician. While bowing to the Duke, he hauled in a large sack filled with rare medicinal herbs. He claimed they were for Joshua's treatment, but then he froze, spotting Belle. Just what do you think you're doing? Belle's heart raced. I am treating him. The doctor erupted in fury. It is his leg that is bleeding, girl. Why are you touching his chest? Belle bit her lip, unable to reveal the secrets of her eye of healing. Words failed her. The doctor's patience snapped, berating her for being an ignorant child who only caused trouble. "Your Grace, will you truly permit this common child to experiment on the young master? Her skills cannot even compare to Lady Diana's." Belle looked up to find the icy gaze of Madame Caston. She was the late Duchess's maid, the very woman who had supervised Joshua's care in Belle's previous life. She was the one person in this manor who loathed Belle most. "Your Grace, are you certain about entrusting him to her?" Before she could utter another word, the Duke's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Silence. Belle is my honored guest. I will not hear such disrespect again. I refuse to simply watch my son die." The doctor tried to argue, but Edwin's freezing stare paralyzed him. "Are you questioning my father's and my judgment?" The doctor fell silent, cowed. Watching them defend her, Belle felt a strange, warm flutter in her heart. Edwin was always like this, sharp and unwavering. "Can we begin now?" "Yes," Belle replied immediately. A soft golden glow shimmered at Belle's fingertips. In truth, the healing power she held was as vast as the sea. Yet she could only manifest a tiny fraction of it. This was why she had always failed to heal anyone before. In her past life, envy and spite had rotted her soul, leaving her to waste away in a meaningless existence. But now she would sever the chains of her past and embrace her true self. "Please, grant me your strength. Let me save him." Suddenly, a faint glimmer of light exploded into brilliance. Waves of golden, sacred radiance surged from Belle, bathing the room in a heavenly glow. The overwhelming power washed over everyone as Edwin shielded his eyes from the blinding light. He watched as the divine energy within Belle's palms slowly merged into Joshua's body. As the glow faded, the doctor rushed forward, discovering that Joshua's bleeding had miraculously ceased. Belle panted heavily, her internal mana almost entirely extinguished by the exertion. But Madame Caston scoffed. "Why is he still asleep? We shouldn't trust a low-born orphan." Suddenly Joshua sat up, rubbing his eyes groggily. "Why is everyone gathered in my room?" Seeing him restored to life, the cold shadow of death finally vanished. Joy filled the room, but Belle stood silently, her heart racing as Joshua finally noticed her. The Duke spoke softly. "Belle saved you." Joshua smiled. "So, it's the pretty sister again." Belle was confused, but her vision blurred as soul-crushing exhaustion finally claimed her strength. Edwin rushed to catch her. "Are you all right? You've pushed yourself far too hard." Before he could finish, blood trickled from Belle's nose, shocking everyone in the room. Darkness swallowed her as she collapsed, her consciousness drifting back to a snowy orphanage memory. That day, the children proudly showcased their unique talents. To avoid needy patients, young Belle hid in the woods, encountering her past self there. She saw herself treating a lost boy named Joshua, trying to mend his broken heart. But back then, her fledgling powers were simply not enough to save him. When servants approached, Belle fled in a panic, leaving the boy behind in shadows. Yet she made a sacred vow: "Next time I will surely cure your illness." She never imagined that Joshua would treasure that forest promise for all those years. "I will save you." When Belle awoke, she found herself safe in a bed. Edwin and Joshua were watching over her. Belle sat up, her eyes seeking Joshua. Though he looked better, a flicker of orange flame still burned within his chest. She moved to continue, but Edwin stopped her. "Look at yourself, your nose is bleeding." He gently wiped her face with a handkerchief, pleading with her to rest her body. "You've slept for an entire day already. Please put your own well-being first, Belle." Belle looked grave. She knew the boy's lingering curse had not fully vanished yet. If Joshua died, the Duke would be consumed by the same grief she remembered before. Belle begged to continue, but the Duke's firm voice cut through her desperate plea. "Stop the treatment." Belle feared he was disappointed, but the truth was far deeper. Years ago, Joshua had told the Duke about the mysterious girl in the woods. After Joshua's past death, the Duke realized it was a cruel hereditary bloodline curse. Driven by Joshua's old stories, the Duke had searched relentlessly until he found Belle. Finally, Belle understood why she had truly been adopted in her tragic previous life. Grateful, the Duke urged her to recover fully before attempting any further dangerous healing. Joshua agreed. He wanted Belle safe and couldn't bear to see her suffer anymore. "I must object," the silent doctor suddenly shouted, his voice trembling with hidden fear. The Duke expected doubt, but the doctor's eyes held nothing but profound, terrifying respect. Having seen her miracle, he couldn't allow her to sacrifice her life any further. For while Belle slept, the doctor discovered her heart had momentarily stopped beating entirely. The moment those terrifying words echoed, memories of her past life's torture and false imprisonment came rushing back like fire. It was then she remembered the secret power she discovered while rotting in prison. The second prince gazed at the stolen heart. Was this truly a divine blessing? Every wound mended instantly. She could breathe, even without a beating heart. Discovery meant losing her title. Belle touched her chest. It was hauntingly silent. Had her stolen heart failed to return during this miraculous rebirth? What sustained her hollow body? Was it truly God's mysterious protection? The doctor claimed her heart stopped simply due to extreme healing exhaustion. Though she woke, her pulse remained a ghostly, nearly undetectable echo. To continue the treatment meant sacrificing Belle's life for young Joshua's. Belle stubbornly insisted she could survive. She had endured this void before. "I am strong. Even as an orphan, I was always the healthiest child." Belle pleaded her case, but the doctor's resolve remained like cold steel. Seeing the stalemate, the Duke intervened. "Joshua's treatment pauses until Belle recovers. Obey me." He ordered the finest restorative elixirs for her recovery immediately. Her eyes sparkled as she requested a legendary herb to hasten her healing. The doctor hesitated, but he could not refuse the Duke's silent authority. Despite her weakness, Belle urged Edwin to undergo a thorough physical examination. Her request sparked a flicker of curiosity in the doctor's professional mind. "Why focus on his heart instead of his crippled leg?" the doctor asked. "Diana's treatment failed," Belle explained. "The rot was never in his limbs. The heart governs the blood's flow. That is where the illness hides." As they stared, Belle remembered her disguise. She was only 5 years old. I read it in an old medical tome," she quickly added. Edwin's suspicion lingered. "You understood that? Well, only a tiny bit." Following her lead, the doctor realized Joshua's heart might be the true culprit. "This disease is hereditary. That is why Lord Edwin must be tested too." The Duke's lineage was clean. The late Duchess was likely the source. The truth emerged. Overwhelmed by guilt, the doctor realized his grave oversight. He had allowed Joshua's suffering to drag on for far too long. He moved to examine Edwin, gifting Belle his rarest herbs as gratitude. Finally, a heavy weight lifted from Belle's weary, courageous soul. As the carriage arrived, Belle prepared to bid her new sanctuary farewell. Her mission was complete. Joshua was safe and Edwin's fate was rewritten. With a radiant smile, she said her goodbyes to the entire household. "Stay healthy, Master Joshua. Farewell to you as well, eldest young master." "Wait," Edwin called out. "Don't call me that. Use my name again." In her fevered sleep, she had unconsciously whispered his name aloud. Addressing nobles directly was a sin that had ruined her previous life. Terror seized her. Belle scrambled to offer a desperate, panicked apology. But Edwin smiled. "Next time we meet, just call me Edwin." His first smile. Belle's heart fluttered as she realized destiny had shifted. In this new life, how long until their paths crossed again? The extra had eclipsed the heroine snatching the young master from death. Deeply moved, the Duke decided to formally welcome Belle into his family. Edwin's praise for Belle silenced Diana, the so-called saint whose power failed. The orphanage's secret was chilling. Healing only works if vitality still flickers. If young Master Joshua's ailment persisted despite every cure, his fate was sealed death. Hearing his little brother's life dismissed so coldly, Edwin's composure shattered into a million pieces. Guilt consumed him. If he hadn't coaxed Joshua outside to play, that tragedy never would have happened. It was his sin. Ignoring his father's comfort, Edwin remained entombed in his room for days. Finally, the silence broke. Edwin emerged, seeking a private audience with the Duke. Instantly, the Duke saw it. Though haggard, his son's eyes burned with a newfound, terrifying resolve. "Father, another saintess candidate exists. We must bring her here to save Joshua at once." Edwin was always mature, but that day the final ember of his childhood innocence vanished forever. As Joshua's condition rapidly deteriorated each passing day, Edwin displayed the cold logic of an heir, yet his father's heart ached at the transformation. The physician stood amazed by Belle's divine powers. She wielded miraculous healing and deep medical lore, yet an uncanny aura lingered about her. Her crimson gaze felt as though it pierced his soul, stirring a profound, nameless dread within. "Are you only suspicious because she used your rare herbs for the treatment?" Yet the Duke was charmed. "Doesn't she remind you of a fragile, innocent little rabbit?" "She's adorable," Edwin murmured, but her eyes, they are truly the most captivating part. They pulsed with life like a beating heart. Meanwhile, Belle had returned to the orphanage. The priest's face darkened. "Why did you heal him?" he hissed, hurling a parchment at her. It was a formal decree, bearing the seal of the Duke of 𝐂𝐨. 1. Adopt Belle as the new saintess candidate. to investigate the orphanage for Diana's failed miracle. While the Duke didn't demand the return of his gold, he demanded a full accounting of every coin spent. Belle felt joy yet deep confusion. If the Duke knew the diagnosis couldn't, the physicians simply provide the standard cure. Why go so far as to adopt her? Suddenly the priest seized Belle's shoulders with crushing force. I ordered you to only pretend to heal him. Why did you succeed? Belle stammered that she'd barely used any power. It must be a divine miracle from God. Absurd. The priest's facade shattered, revealing a face twisted by pure, unadulterated malice. Eerie violet flames engulfed him. How dare you dismantle everything I've built? That brat should be dead, Belle froze. Had the priest truly intended for Joshua to die? Coldly, the high priest ordered the guards to seize her. Accused of demonic possession, Belle was entombed in the confessional to atone through suffering. She knew this darkness. In her past life, this was where they stole her light. Having been reborn to change her fate, she refused to wait for death's cold embrace again. 2 days passed in shadows. Then familiar eerie whispers began to echo within the stone walls. These were the same dark incantations she'd heard Diana chant in her forgotten past. Was it forbidden magic? Suddenly, a massive crimson circle erupted into light beneath her feet. The chanting intensified. Terror gripped Belle as she screamed for help into the void. Despair washed over her. Was her divinity destined to be torn away once more? As her consciousness faded, a familiar, powerful voice suddenly roared her name through the darkness. Before her stood Edwin, now a fully grown man. His blade shattered the cell's barrier, pulling her from death's door. He had actually come. They fled, hounds at their heels. Hide, Belle, Edwin commanded. I'll lead them away. Fearing a final goodbye, she cried out, I never wanted Diana to die. I'm innocent. I never hid those treasonous letters. I didn't betray your family. Silently, Edwin handed her a glass vial. Keep this safe. It was her heart. Belle felt unworthy of the Duke's devotion, but he whispered to never doubt his love. Father signed your adoption papers for your 18th birthday. You are officially part of our family forever. But the assassin struck. A cold blade flashed, aimed straight for Belle's throat in a deadly arc. Without a second thought, Edwin shielded her, letting the steel tear through his own chest instead. Belle screamed, desperate to heal him, but with her powers gone, she watched helplessly as his life faded. As life ebbed away, Edwin reached out with trembling fingers to brush her falling tears aside. He gave a final loving look. As his heart stopped, Belle's world shattered into 1,000 pieces. A divine radiance exploded from her soul, obliterating the enemies consumed by those cursed purple flames. Belle sobbed in her sleep, whispering Edwin's name. Suddenly, a warm hand reached out to soothe her. Hush, you are safe. Belle forced her eyes open, squinting at a shadowy yet familiar silhouette. Drifting into tranquility, she finally woke to find herself cradled securely within the Duke's protective embrace. Only then did Belle realize the truth. She was finally safe. The treacherous priest rushed forward, stunned by the Duke's arrival. Coldly, the Duke handed Belle a pouch. Your medicine from the doctor. Guard it well. Belle instantly knew what this meant. She must have lost it when she was forcibly dragged into that dark confessional. Finding the pouch in the hallway had alerted the Duke to the danger. He gently lowered Belle. With a piercing gaze, he demanded an explanation. Why was Belle imprisoned here? The priest stammered nervously. This is a sacred exorcism chamber. She returned possessed, so a ritual was required. The Duke sneered, his blade singing from its sheath. You are the one possessed. Perhaps I should perform the exorcism myself. As steel touched the priest's neck, a powerful, commanding voice boomed through the hall. Stop this at once. It was Pope Montez himself. I heard the saintess candidate healed your child's sickness, he noted calmly. I came to congratulate you. The Duke sheathed his blade, gesturing to the prison Belle was in. The priest scrambled to explain. Your Holiness, this is simply a room for disciplining disobedient children. You gave me authority over them, didn't you? But the Pope ignored his desperate plea completely. Approaching Belle, the Pope asked softly, Little one, do you still recognize who I am? This was her chance to unmask the priest. Sensing no malice from the Pope, she decided to trust. I remember. You are the Pope from the Holy Temple. His eyes warmed as he looked at her. Tell me, then, what happened here? He calls this place the confessional room, Belle whispered. He says naughty children are possessed and locks them away. Please, your Holiness, believe my words. I was never possessed. Years of hidden pain finally overflowed, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. Patting her head, the Pope's gaze hardened as he commanded the priest's immediate expulsion from the temple. Every accomplice would face judgment. Belle wished to reveal how these rooms stole children's sacred gifts, but she lacked any proof. Without evidence of the ancient spells, she had to retreat. At least the nightmare was finally ending. The Duke demanded the Imperial Bureau investigate the priest thoroughly. No stone would be left unturned. Since it concerned Belle, he would never let this matter rest. The Pope consented, leaving the Duke in charge. Belle watched the old man's fading silhouette. A halo of mortality surrounded him. Seeing nature's inevitable law, Belle could only offer a silent prayer. One final meeting. The priest spat curses, and that eerie purple flame flared above him once more. It was identical to the flames that haunted her past life, the mark of her former killers. She had conquered those shadows before. She could surely crush this corrupt priest now. I shall cleanse the darkness from your soul. Her aura surged, golden light shattering the purple flames. The priest's agonized scream echoed through the chamber. He slumped to the floor broken. But Belle's strength was spent. A burning fever took hold. The Duke offered rest, yet Belle's heart yearned for escape. Exhaustion finally claimed her in his protective arms. Awakening, she found herself in a ghost of the past. It was her bedroom from her previous life. Memories of the nightmare flooded back, confirming her freedom from the orphanage. I am Tara, miss. I shall care for you from now on. Seeing that face, Belle's heart surged. Tara was her only beacon of warmth in a dark former life. Back then, fear and pain had turned her into a rebellious shadow of herself. While others fled, only Tara stayed. This time Belle would repay that loyalty with her very soul. Renewed in silk and lace, Belle's fragile frame still betrayed the starvation she had endured. Tara saw the scars of the orphanage written in every bone of the girl's painfully thin body. She offered a restorative tonic, desperate to heal the damage of those cruel forgotten years. Belle swallowed the bitterness whole. Suddenly, the door crashed open. What is the meaning of this? Mrs. 𝐂𝐨𝐿 barked, her voice like shards of glass. Young Master Joshua is waiting. Move at once. You are a mere tool for his recovery. Never forget your lowly place in this noble house. Even Tara felt the venom. For the sake of the late Duchess, Belle chose silent, cold endurance. Swallowing her pride, she met Joshua. The boy's face lit up with an innocent, radiant joy. Big sister, seeing his stable condition, the crushing weight on Belle's heart finally began to lift. She thanked the doctor, then steeled her soul. The second phase of the sacred treatment began. Focus ignited her spirit. Brilliant golden light flooded through Joshua's veins like liquid sun. Joshua gasped in pain. Without warning, a violent strike sent Belle crashing to the floor. Stop, 𝐂𝐨𝐿 screamed. The doctor watched in horror at the woman's reckless and dangerous interference. Are you mad? You have interrupted a delicate ritual of healing while it was in progress. 𝐂𝐨𝐿 shielded Joshua with frantic malice, while Belle rose shaking from the cold, hard ground. Her only thought was Joshua's safety. Despite 𝐂𝐿's venomous accusations, the boy remained miraculously unharmed. Suddenly, Joshua grabbed his leg and ripped the bandages away in a single defiant motion. The wound was gone. A miracle, the doctor gasped. Belle turned to 𝐂𝐿 with icy resolve. I can cure him, but discomfort is the price. Never dare to interfere with me again. The room fell into a tomb-like silence as the weight of her authority took hold. 𝐂𝐿's fury boiled, but Joshua's voice cut the air. This is your fault, Mrs. 𝐂𝐿. You have done a great wrong. You must offer her your sincerest apology at once. Forced into submission, 𝐂𝐿 apologized. Belle simply looked at her and vowed to heal the boy. The doctor produced a secret elixir, promising to double the potency of Belle's divine light. In that moment, Edwin arrived. His presence alone sent ripples of longing through Belle's heart. Every glance at him brought back the agonizing shadows of their shared tragic history. She clutched her dress, silenced by emotion. Please, Edwin whispered, call me by my name. His tenderness was undeniable. Joshua cheered, pulling them together in his innocent childhood delight. While Joshua showed off his healing, Belle caught the murderous glare 𝐂𝐿 aimed at Edwin. Suspicion deepened instantly. As Edwin reached out, 𝐂𝐿 severed the moment. Young master, your sword lessons await you. The warmth of the room instantly shattered into 1,000 jagged shards of ice. The doctor hurried everyone out, but Joshua's small hands refused to let go of Belle. Stay, sister. In the hallway, Edwin's voice was thick with unspoken concern for her well-being. He ordered the doctor to spare no expense for her recovery, fearing the cost of her magic. The physician smiled, seeing the Duke's mask slip. You care for her more than you admit. Edwin's ears turned a vivid red. I am merely grateful for her service to my brother. Watching 𝐂𝐨𝐮's retreating back, 𝐂𝐻𝐿 felt the chilling weight of her deep-seated hidden resentment. 𝐂𝐿, the morning maid, poured every ounce of her devotion into young Joshua. But a tragic accident during an outing with 𝐿 nearly cost the boy his life. Bitter resentment took root in 𝐂𝐿's heart, sparking deep concern from the family doctor. Yet 𝐿 remained silent, content as long as Joshua was surrounded by genuine affection. Inside the room, a dazzling hoard of magnificent jewels sparkled like fallen stars. Joshua danced joyfully amidst the gems before sliding a precious ring onto 𝐿's finger. This was mother's favorite, but it's far too large for my small hands to hold. Seeing his longing, 𝐿 threaded the ring onto a ribbon to hang around his neck. Now you can keep your mother close to your heart at all times. Joshua embraced her warmly, unaware of the sharp, icy gaze watching from the shadows. 𝐿 tidied the treasures and promised Joshua another day of play before departing. She felt the cold rift between 𝐂𝐿 and 𝐿, wondering what darkness lay between them. On their journey back, Tara whispered the tragic history behind their fractured relationship. Knowing 𝐿 was innocent, 𝐿 felt a heavy heart until Tara offered gentle comfort. They will reconcile, soon, Tara promised, as the Duke prepared 𝐿's official sponsorship. Alone, 𝐿 realized her rebirth had already begun to shift the threads of destiny. Her reunion with the Duke's family had arrived much sooner than in her past. She had saved Joshua's life, yet the path ahead remained a clouded, uncertain mystery. She vowed to live well, avoid Diana's wrath, and escape her once tragic end. She would protect the household and grow strong enough to face any coming storm. Then she remembered her lost heart, a treasure stolen with no clues to follow. 𝐿 burned her plans, but as flames rose, the door was violently kicked open. "The Duchess's ring is gone," 𝐂𝐿 hissed, leading a swarm of accusing maids. Suspicion fell on 𝐿 after her dress ribbon was discovered near the scene. Only 𝐿 had seen the ring, making her the prime suspect in their eyes. Despite protests, 𝐿 stood tall and opened her doors to prove her innocence. She expected justice, but a sudden gasp echoed through the silent, tense room. The ring was found in her cabinet. 𝐿 froze, her world spinning in disbelief. How did it get there? Faced with their doubts, 𝐿 found herself utterly defenseless. Suddenly, Joshua rushed in, shielding 𝐿 with his tiny, trembling body. While 𝐂𝐿 soothed the boy, a maid shrieked that 𝐿 had deceived his innocence. If she's innocent, why was her ribbon used to hide the stolen ring? 𝐿's eyes sharpened. Only a few knew about that ribbon. How did she know? The maid panicked under 𝐿's cold gaze, desperately claiming she was no liar. "Then I shall investigate personally." The Duke and 𝐿 suddenly appeared in the doorway. The maid's composure shattered instantly. She screamed hysterically, pointing a shaking finger at 𝐿. The Duke's gaze turned glacial. "𝐿 is family and my son's true savior. To slander her without proof is to insult the very dignity of my household." 𝐿 stepped to her side, his presence radiating a terrifying and protective aura. Their unwavering trust moved 𝐿 deeply as the maid finally buckled under the pressure. Crushed by guilt, she confessed to stealing the jewels to pay a heavy debt. She had framed 𝐿 to escape 𝐂𝐿's sharp eyes and inevitable harsh punishment. Justice was swift as the deceitful maid was dragged away in complete disgrace. 𝐿 stood shaken, knowing her fate was saved by their timely and powerful arrival. 𝐂𝐿 turned away in silence, her heart heavy with the shame of her mistake. Lowering her head in shame, 𝐂𝐿 offered a sincere apology, finally repenting for the reckless actions that hurt 𝐿. Despite 𝐿's warm forgiveness, 𝐂𝐿 felt her honor stained, no longer worthy of remaining within the prestigious Duke's household. Though the Duke pleaded for her to remain, 𝐂𝐿 stood firm in her decision to resign immediately. At the farewell, Joshua embraced her like a mother. 𝐿 vowed, "I'll protect Joshua with everything, even if I'm not Diana." "Nonsense, you aren't inferior to Miss Diana in the slightest. When I see Diana again, I'll tell her she never needs to worry about you anymore." Apparently, during her visits, Diana often subtly mentioned 𝐿, feigning concern while casting doubt on her weak healing abilities. Only then did the truth dawn on 𝐿. Diana's words had poisoned the servants' trust in her power. But why would Diana do this? Was it genuine worry or something far more calculated? Following Mrs. 𝐂𝐿's exit, the servants' cold attitudes toward 𝐿 shifted significantly. Between Joshua's treatments, 𝐿 spent her days scouring the woods for a mysterious herb with glowing pink leaves. Known as fairy grass in the novel, this rare plant held legendary beauty-enhancing properties and a massive price tag. Yet, despite her tireless searching, 𝐿 returned empty-handed day after day. Suddenly, the ring of steel echoed nearby. Bell followed the sound to find Edwin locked in intense sword training. Suddenly, his blade was sent spinning. Edwin collapsed battered and bloodied upon the dirt. His gaze remained fierce. With such pathetic skills, you actually dream of inheriting the title his opponent taunted. Edwin was struck down repeatedly, yet he rose every time. You'll only bring ruin to the house of 𝐂𝐤𝐫𝐲. Belle's heart ached at the sight. This wasn't training, it was cruel, one-sided bullying. She charged out instantly, sternly ordering the man to apologize for his cruelty. While Edwin watched in shock, Belle swung her tiny fists. Stop it, Edwin is the finest heir there is. The Duke watched the scene unfold, feeling quite awkward at the sudden confrontation. How did Sven, the legendary guardian knight, end up cornered? He had simply pushed Edwin too far. Belle fumed with indignation, unaware that this brutal training was actually Edwin's own desperate request. Driven by a need to protect what he loved, Edwin felt his current strength was nowhere near enough. Even the insults were calculated, a test of mental fortitude against the heat of provocation. Ironically, it was Belle who snapped first. Belle, have you ever heard of the Shadow Legion? They're a mysterious elite group serving the ducal family in the shadows. To command them, Edwin must first prove his worth by defeating Sven in combat. Sven had only intensified the heat. Realization hit Belle, she had completely misread the situation. Blushing, Belle scrambled to apologize to Sven, who offered her a gentle, forgiving smile. Sven praised her bravery, yet warned, pure courage can become recklessness, inviting disaster upon yourself. Anyway, what brings you all the way out to the training grounds? Flustered Belle admitted she had been foraging for rare medicinal herbs in the nearby woods. I read about these pink heart-shaped leaves. They're beautiful, but I can't find them anywhere. Edwin thought for a second, then guided her straight to them. Belle's eyes sparkled with wonder. Before Joshua was hurt, the brothers explored here. They knew every leaf here. Suddenly, Belle noticed a fresh cut on Edwin's cheek. It's just a training scratch, he muttered. Suddenly, Belle gently cupped his face. Let me heal it. Edwin's face darkened as he sharply pushed her hand away. Stop, don't you realize how much this power drains your very life force? You always say you're fine, but do you know the agony of watching you collapse? Stunned, Belle stood frozen. Are you actually worried about me? She whispered tentatively. Turning crimson, he confessed, yes, I'm terrified for you. So please, never do that again. Since her rebirth, Belle only aimed to serve. She never imagined she'd be cherished like this. From now on, I won't cause anyone such worry again. Returning home, the doctor treated Edwin's wounds before presenting Belle with the legendary herb she had long craved. Overjoyed, Belle unveiled a miracle of her own. She handed the doctor the shimmering fairy grass she had personally unearthed. Stunned, the doctor's voice trembled. Where did she find this? In her past life, Belle knew his deepest obsession. The doctor lived for rare botanicals, yet the mythical fairy grass had always remained his one unattainable dream. Belle swore Edwin to secrecy. Intrigued, the boy whispered, is this simple weed truly that precious and valuable? Absolutely, its power heals the skin. As a serum, it grants a complexion as flawless and radiant as a fairy's. Belle's eyes gleamed with ambition. I intend to try cultivating this fairy grass myself. Pondering, the doctor stroked his beard. A single stalk won't suffice for a full harvest, child. What if I provide more? After sharp negotiation, the doctor finally agreed to help Belle grow her secret garden. He wondered about her true goal. Belle merely offered a mysterious, knowing smile. A trade secret, she teased. In the past, Diana sold basic sachets made from this rare plant. Because wild fairy grass was so scarce, Diana's production was always limited and painfully slow. However, Belle knew how to turn droplets into gold. Her confidence ignited the doctor's own professional passion. I will grow as much as you require. The doctor promised, fueling Belle's bold new vision. This world had healers for the dying, but none for women seeking eternal youth and radiant beauty. Belle would use this grass to build the Empire's very first sanctuary for skincare and aesthetics. With the doctor as director and herself as the mastermind, a life of luxury finally awaited her. While lost in her golden dreams, reality suddenly came knocking at her door. The Duke's messenger arrived, summoning Belle for an urgent and private audience regarding an important matter. The Duke shifted a book, revealing a secret door. Step inside, Belle. There is something you must see. Carrying Belle, the Duke descended into the depths, reaching the legendary hidden treasury of their noble house. Only the family heads were ever permitted to cross this sacred and ancient threshold. Ancient trophies filled the room. The saint's demon-slaying arrow and cursed rings lay glinting in the dark. Belle stared at relics she had only ever read about in dusty, ancient myths. It felt surreal. Then the Duke pointed to a simple teddy bear. "This is my gift to you. He will be your eternal guardian knight." Belle frowned at the plain doll, utterly baffled by his choice. "Channel your mana into it just as you did when healing young Joshua." Golden light poured from her hands. The bear drank the energy until it radiated a divine, warm glow. The pact was sealed. Suddenly the bear leaped from her arms with surprising lifelike agility. It flipped through the air, landing perfectly. Both Belle and the Duke watched in stunned silence. Raising a tiny paw, it spoke. "I am Teddy Bear, and I shall be Belle's loyal knight." The Duke became a shameless, doting father, showering Belle with a grander room and endless luxury gifts. Daily treasures arrived until her room resembled a massive mountain of pure opulence. As Joshua recovered, the doctor labored over the magical fairy grass in his secret laboratory. Bored Belle brought snacks to visit Edwin. She swung open the training hall doors, expecting peace. Instead, she found Edwin and Knight Sven locked in a fierce, deadly duel of steel. They brandished sharpened blades, not wooden practice swords. Seeing Belle, Edwin cursed his terrible luck. Sven's bloodlust was rising today. In this wild state, the knight might truly lose all control. If Sven spotted her, disaster would strike. The knight paused, sensing a new presence behind him. Edwin roared a question. "Do you regret saving my father that day?" Sven froze in his tracks. Why ask that now? Edwin pressed on, needing to know if that sacrifice still haunted his soul. Sven's leg was crippled, saving the Duke a wound that had always festered in his very heart. Edwin used the trauma as a distraction. Sven gripped his blade tighter, a dark sneer forming. "Defeat me and I shall answer." Edwin braced himself as the knight shifted into a lethal stance. Suddenly, Sven whirled around with blinding speed, charging directly toward the terrified Belle. Belle stood paralyzed as chaos erupted. Edwin lunged forward in a frantic sprint, but time had already run out. Before the lethal steel could strike, a violent force sent it flying. The Duke swept Belle into his shadow, his gaze piercing through Sven. "Just what is your aim?" Sven stammered, his heart hammering at the Duke's sudden, imposing arrival. He muttered a feeble plea of innocence, claiming Belle was never his target, but his words withered under the Duke's cold, judgmental stare. Then Belle's eyes widened. Dark violet embers were flickering around Sven's mangled leg. Mirroring that sinister glow from the priest, Edwin shielded her instantly as Sven collapsed, howling in a fit of uncontrollable madness. "I crippled myself for you. And you destroyed my future." Watching his former brother-in-arms crumble was more than the Duke could take. As the Duke reached out in pity, Sven's hand blurred. A hidden blade flashed, aiming straight for the Duke's heart. Steel rang against steel as the Duke parried, but Sven was possessed, striking again with a desperate, suicidal fury. Mid-struggle, the Duke caught the blade, begging for reason. Yet Sven's eyes were vacant. He was seeking only his own end. Belle forced her eyes open, only to find the silence of death. Sven lay still upon the cold earth. The Duke stood frozen, his silence heavy with grief. Only Edwin's trembling voice, calling father, broke his trance, prompting him to comfort the shaken children. Edwin then produced a crumpled parchment, a dark secret he had uncovered within Sven's private quarters weeks prior. "A child is a parent's soul. May the thief who stole yours taste the same bitter agony." This was no accident. Someone had systematically weaponized Sven's resentment. The Duke's gaze fell on Edwin. His son had carried this burden alone, silently absorbing a mentor's hatred to protect the peace. As Belle bandaged Edwin's injuries, the memory of those cursed purple flames sent a chilling shiver through her very soul. Realizing Edwin had been aware of Sven's malice all along, Belle wondered why he never spoke up. Why not ask for a new master? Your father is indebted to him, not you. A legendary knight fallen to a mere tutor, Edwin couldn't bear to strip away the man's last shred of dignity. He believed that by bearing the weight in silence, the storm would eventually fade. But the poison festered until Belle became the target. Seeing Edwin's crushing guilt, Belle pulled him into a desperate, tearful embrace. "Don't carry this alone anymore. If danger looms, please promise to tell me." Months blurred by in the ducal manor. Belle's days were filled with healing Joshua and uncovering the mystical properties of fairy grass alongside the physician. The estate began to feel like home. Then an unexpected carriage bearing a strange crest rattled through the main gates. Whispers among the staff confirmed the news. Lady Diana of the Barrow House had arrived. Her greatest rival from a past life was standing at her doorstep, leaving Belle's mind reeling in confusion. Dressed in finery by bustling maids, Belle felt lost. Apparently, Diana had come to offer a formal apology for her past failure to heal Joshua. But why was Belle being groomed like a prize on display? Tara beamed, insisting her friends should witness her newfound radiance. To Belle, the logic seemed almost innocent enough to believe. This was her moment to show Diana a different Belle, perhaps even turn an old enemy into a new ally. Heart-pounding, Belle approached but was instantly swept into an enthusiastic hug. "Oh, Belle, I've missed you terribly." The sudden warmth felt artificial. Just as Belle moved to reciprocate, Diana pulled away with a calculated, abrupt grace. Signaling her maid, a box of delicacies appeared. "I brought a special walnut pie just for us to share." "Let's indulge," Diana smiled as Lily began to boast loudly nearby. "My lady," worried Miss Belle, had never tasted true luxury before. Tara's eyes flashed with irritation at the blatant insult. "The Duke's private patisserie is unmatched. We rarely have a need for common street treats." Sensing the mounting tension, Belle softly requested the maid to accept the gift to maintain peace. When the servants departed, a heavy, suffocating silence filled the air. Belle struggled to find a single thread of conversation. Diana leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I've been so anxious, Belle. My failure trapped you here. You're a prisoner because of me." Belle recoiled, her mind spinning at the bizarre accusation. The Marquis confessed it all, how he's holding another saint candidate against her will in this house. "He claims you healed him. Is that the lie?" The sharp edge of mockery in Diana's voice was impossible to ignore. "Do you truly think I lacked the strength? I may not be you, but my divine grace is undeniable. Then tell me, why do you cower in the shadows during every holy festival? Your guilt fuels those powers, doesn't it?" Diana's icy gaze pierced Belle's soul like a blade. Choking on comparisons, she swallowed her words, unable to voice her silent agony. "Boredom is my only reason," she lied, knowing Diana's miracle for Joshua was a complete farce. Diana loomed closer. "Belle, be honest with me." The Duke's pity rescued her from the priest's dungeon. Belle shuddered, recalling that dark, suffocating confessional. That vain priest would never risk his prestige by leaking such a scandal. To preserve their holy image, the temple buried the truth forever. "The Marquis spilled everything," Diana remarked. Belle froze. The priest's true nature was finally surfacing. This wasn't the kind girl from her past. A cold stranger now stood before her. While Diana indulged in sweets, a terrifying flicker of yellow flame ignited at her throat. An allergic reaction. Belle stared at the table, a chilling suspicion taking root. Did Diana truly not know? Should Belle intervene and save her? Diana offered a slice of her own walnut pie, urging Belle to take a bite. As Diana tasted the crust, a sinister, twisted smile ghosted across her lips. Panic struck. Diana's expression crumpled as the flames at her throat flared with lethal intensity. Belle lunged forward. "Spit it out. You're going to suffocate." The maid rushed in, violently shoving Belle aside. "What have you done to my lady? Did you poison her?" Those words chilled Belle to her very core. The nightmare returned. Just like before, an accident was being twisted into a murder charge. The memory of the executioner's blade drained the color from her face. "It wasn't me," Belle cried. Then Edwin's voice cut through the chaos like a lifeline. Tears flowed freely. "I didn't do it." "I know," he whispered. "I've got you." But the maid snarled. "If not blight, poison, why is she dying before our eyes?" Edwin's gaze turned lethal. "Watch your tongue, or face the weight of my wrath." He summoned a doctor, immediately demanding Tara verify the purity of the pastries. In that moment of sanctuary, Belle realized the truth. Edwin was her eternal shield, yet she knew she had to find her own strength. Belle stepped up. "This isn't poison, it's an allergy. She's suffocating." Using her divine touch, Belle fought to stabilize Diana's fading breath. Though drained to her limit, the ungrateful maid continued to bark demands. "Heal her skin too," Edwin snapped. "Your greed knows no bounds." Marquis Berlotte burst in. "Diana, is your healing power still intact?" Belle's heart hammered as traumatic memories of her past life flooded back. This monster had stolen her heart and branded her family as traitors. He was the one who paved Diana's path to becoming the Holy Maiden. Was Diana his accomplice? Suddenly the Duke and the physician arrived. The doctor confirmed Diana was safe, praising Belle's swift, life-saving intervention. Yet the Marquis snarled. This disaster only happened because of Belle. The Duke's voice turned to ice. "How is Belle responsible for your guest? She was a perfect host. Perhaps your maid should explain her own incompetence." "She ignored a deadly allergy," the Marquis stammered desperately, clutching at straws. "How could she know about the ingredients?" The Duke remained unyielding. "Nuts are forbidden here, for my own son shares that same lethal allergy. Such poison would never cross the threshold of my manor." Belle broke the silence. She's sick because of the walnut pie she brought herself. Diana shielded her face, weeping piteously as she spun a web of dramatic lies. She ruthlessly slandered Belle, mocking her hunger back at the desolate orphanage. She even stole from others, so I bought this for her. Belle stood frozen in shock. The Marquise seized the opening. It's all Belle's fault. She forced Diana to eat her leftovers. The maid joined the attack. I saw it. Belle forced her hand into the mistress's mouth. Belle's fury erupted. I was trying to save her, Edwin, and Tara stepped forward in defense. Belle didn't force her. Look, she was even scratched while trying to help Diana. The Marquis tried to argue further, but the Duke's cold gaze silenced him instantly. I've endured your presence for Diana's sake, but no more. Guards, see them out. The Marquis retreated in shame, yet Diana lingered, offering Belle a final hollow apology. Forgive my scratch. Let me heal you. As light flowed from her palm, the wound vanished. But an eerie sensation washed over Belle. It felt like cold insects crawling beneath her skin. Peering through the glow, a sinister streak of purple swirled within Diana's supposed holy light. Diana leaned in, whispering venomously, "You've grown clever, Belle. Is it because you stole my place? How dare you take what's mine?" Belle gasped in horror, but Diana simply vanished. The Marquis seethed with resentment, his eyes burning with a dark, vengeful promise. He bitterly commanded Diana to never forget the sting of today's absolute humiliation. Remember this and repay it twofold. Soon after, Belle collapsed, her strength completely spent. Shaken by Diana's malice, Belle fell into a deep, unconscious slumber for 2 agonizing days. Waking from her fever, Belle's mind raced. Why did Diana possess that terrifying purple aura? It mirrored the darkness of the priest, yet Diana was destined to become the holy maiden. How could she harbor evil? In her past life, Diana's soul path was that of a saint. Dismissing her doubts, Belle refocused on the Marquis and his suspicious obsession with Diana's powers. Furthermore, he had long harbored a dark desire to dismantle the Duke's entire bloodline. Belle braced herself, staying alert as the goddess's birthday celebration loomed on the horizon. In the past, this day marked Diana's peak power. Now Belle faced the celebration with dread. The shallow comparisons to Diana no longer held any power over Belle's determined heart. Forget being a saint or winning Edwin. Belle only lived to repay the Duke's grace. The doctor arrived with a triumphant smile. The legendary fairy grass had finally begun to sprout. Belle stared at the tiny, pathetic sprouts, completely stunned. Is this actually the fairy grass? Compared to the ones I found in the wild, these look incredibly underwhelming. The doctor fumed. It's a miracle these legendary seeds sprouted at all. Show some respect. Despite the small harvest, Belle already had a brilliant plan to showcase their first creation. The doctor's eyes gleamed with instant understanding of Belle's ambitious vision. The goddess's festival, he knew Diana and Lord 𝐵𝐲𝐿𝐴 would surely be there. Their insufferable arrogance during their last visit still left a bitter taste in his mouth. Eager to humble them, he vowed, "I'll ensure you dazzle the entire kingdom that day." With the deadline nearing, they worked tirelessly through the night to perfect their secret weapon. After Tara's stunning transformation, interest exploded, filling Belle with newfound, unshakable confidence. Just as Belle prepared to debut her work, the butler blocked her path firmly. "It's too dangerous alone, miss. Please wait for the Duke's return to escort you." Belle revealed her teddy bear. "I have my protector." Suddenly, the toy surged to life. It lunged forward, snatching the butler's bell and crushing it into scrap metal instantly. "I'll destroy anyone who troubles Belle." Terrified, the butler quickly readied her carriage for departure. Destination: the capital's prestigious Merchants Association. Belle sought a patent for her invention, but the hall swarmed with mysterious children. One cloaked boy stood out. He sat in haunting silence, entirely alone, without a single guardian in sight. Belle discovered the palace was hosting a prestigious entrepreneurship competition for the empire's youth. The prize was 5 million. Belle's eyes ignited with a sudden burning ambition for gold. She rushed to register, desperate for the startup funds to launch her future business empire. Suddenly, an icy gaze pierced her back. She turned to meet the boy's piercing eyes. Sensing a rival, Belle glared back with fierce determination, making her intentions crystal clear. "The prize is mine," she signaled. The boy froze before silently retreating into the shadows. Afterward, Belle realized the boy had crimson hair and emerald eyes, marks of the royal bloodline. Pure blood radiates vibrant color. In her past life, the second prince's duller tones fueled his envy. That child was undoubtedly the legendary crown Prince Caesar, hiding in plain sight. Why was he alone? Fate decreed that assassins would strike him during this secret mission. In the original plot, He was left broken and hovering at death's cold door. He had sought Diana's healing then. Belle realized she could rewrite this tragic history now. She sprinted out. She would not allow the Duke to be branded a traitor once again. If she altered this turning point, could she finally prevent the catastrophe of her future? Panic surged as she found fresh blood and a royal crest in a dark alleyway. A blade gleamed in the moonlight, an assassin loomed over the boy, closing in for the kill. The queen's shadow reached everywhere. To fight back, the young prince had planned this secret contest. He sought a brilliant ally to rise with him from the ashes of the royal court. His goal was to find a gifted child and grow together through a bond of mutual value. But betrayal had leaked his location. The queen's killers had finally cornered their royal prey. The assassin sneered with disdain as the boy raised his sword in a final, desperate stand. Steel clashed, but the gap in power was a cruel and insurmountable abyss for a child. As the blade descended, a fluffy bear appeared, sending the assassin flying with a powerful kick. It gripped the man's throat. "I am Teddy, Miss Belle's personal assassin," the doll chirped playfully. The plush toy advanced, radiating a terrifying and bloodthirsty aura that paralyzed the killer. "I love the scent of blood. Let us play." Belle arrived just as the carnage began. Assassination mode was terrifyingly potent. Belle reached for the prince, but he coldly pushed her away. He brushed her hand off, struggling to stand with the pride of a fallen king. Seeing him relatively safe, Belle felt the crushing weight of her anxiety finally melt away. After Teddy finished the slaughter, the prince suddenly buckled and collapsed onto the cold ground. Belle rushed forward, gasping as she saw a jagged crimson wound tearing through his waist. Death was closing in. She remembered Edwin's words about Teddy's hidden legendary giant mode. Instantly, the bear surged into a 5-meter titan of fluff and overwhelming power. It was magnificent, but Belle knew they were still racing against the prince's fading pulse. Cradled in the titan's arms, Belle steered them toward the crowded streets behind the Merchants' Association. He would be found there soon. Until then, Belle's hands flew to provide desperate emergency care. By her return, Belle's secret escape had already ignited the Duke's protective fury. She endured a storm of scolding from her family, promising never to risk her life again. Days passed, yet the newspapers remained silent about a wounded royal heir or any attack. Her intervention had not shattered the world's flow. The timeline remained strangely and eerily intact. On the goddess's birthday, Belle prepared to launch her career and claim her hard-earned fortune. Trading silk for rough cloth, she donned a safety bracelet crafted by the Duke's devotion. Memories of her past life's vanity surfaced as she walked toward the orphanage's grand celebration. She felt like a ghost in those halls. Only icy stares met her presence. Back then, the reason remained a dark mystery. Until a child sneered at her. "Your healing is fading. Yet you dress so grandly. How pathetic." Belle chose plain clothes thereafter, yet they claimed she was mimicking Diana. Suddenly, a chilling thought struck Belle. How did that child know her power was failing? In those days, even she was kept in the dark. Later, she learned her light was stolen. But how did that child know the truth? A servant arrived with a sudden request. The Duke and his sons requested her presence. Belle was stunned. Usually they were busy and only met during dinner. A morning meal together. This was truly a first. The father and sons were already waiting. The warmth of the room felt like a dream. In her past life, these meals were rare. The air back then was heavy. Now, with Joshua alive, everything had changed. Joy blossomed in her chest. Her struggles were finally paying off. The Duke noted her perfect grace. Did the orphanage teach such refined manners? Belle nodded quietly. He was the one who taught her long ago. Orphanage life meant using only rough wooden spoons. Her first feast here was full of blunders. Yet the Duke never showed anger. He had patiently guided her hands. Her gratitude remained as strong as ever. "Is today special?" she asked. Indeed, it was a day of destiny. The Duke knew of her venture. He came solely to offer his support. Following the ancient tradition of the festival, nobles used gold coins for crafts, or to witness a child's unique spiritual gifts. The top earner would be crowned champion. All proceeds would benefit the orphanage. Belle wanted to prove her success first, then share the news with the Duke. But the doctor had already spilled the secret. Edwin then spoke with a question. Why not use your status for gold? But Belle feared Diana's superior light. She felt trapped in Diana's shadow. The Duke's gaze suddenly turned to ice. "Who discouraged you?" he asked. Joshua reached out to comfort her. "Your healing is the best, sister." The Duke urged her to follow her heart. "I will always stand by you." Edwin promised. Both men would support her today. Belle felt deeply touched. Only Joshua looked downcast, stuck in his recovery. Belle headed to the orphanage at dawn. Her stall had to be perfect. Thankfully, the old building remained exactly as she remembered. The doctor arrived to help her. He grumbled loudly while hauling the heavy crates. "You're a rare visitor," the doctor noted. "Why hasn't anyone come to greet you? Don't you have friends?" Belle confessed her heart-wrenching loneliness. A familiar voice cut through the air. "Belle is unique. Shall I tell her story?" Belle's chest tightened. It was Laura, the director. Belle's soul recoiled instantly. Years ago, when her healing power first awakened, Laura showered her with fake affection. Then Diana appeared and everything shifted. Cruel comparisons replaced the warmth. How can you even compete with Diana? That day, Belle's heart fractured. Inferiority and jealousy began to consume her mind. Other teachers gathered, mocking her simple dress. Believing the Duke despised her, the mockery began. They claimed she stole Diana's glory. Even the esteemed royal physician couldn't escape their sharp, mocking tongues. Just a lowly servant of the Duke, poor Belle. No maid, no status. Won't she be dragged back to that filthy orphanage soon? Belle remained stoic, weathered by years of scorn, but Gordon's temper finally snapped. He refused to watch the Duke's precious ward be insulted. Though spirited, Belle's divine healing prowess was unmatched in the entire kingdom. He thrust a formal card toward Laura, his voice cold. "My name is Gordon. As the Duke's royal physician, I testify that Miss Belle saved Master Joshua alone. Her status is absolute." Shock rippled through the crowd. This plain old man was the legendary medical miracle worker Gordon himself. Backed by Gordon's undeniable authority, Belle finally broke her silence to strike back. "The Duke treasures me. He gave me this enchanted bracelet, so he can find me the moment he arrives." Mention of the Duke's imminent arrival drained the color from Laura's face instantly. She forced a sickeningly sweet smile, offering hollow apologies that made Belle's stomach churn with disgust. Desiring no more of their toxic presence, Belle coldly waved them away with a flick of her hand. Gordon feared she'd retreated, but Belle's divine eye saw the truth. Laura's internal distress was about to cause an embarrassing bathroom emergency. Why waste a single breath on someone so utterly insignificant? Her focus remained on the mission ahead, leaving Gordon deeply perplexed. If the orphanage hated Belle, why grant her this prime central location? The answer arrived with Diana's sudden appearance. Diana offered a sugary greeting, revealing the trap. Belle's humble stall sat directly in the shadow of Diana's opulence. Laura intended to use Belle's obscurity to make Diana's star shine even brighter. Strangely, Diana was draped in exquisite silks, a gown eerily similar to the one Belle wore in her past life. Seeing Belle's suspicion, Diana chirped, "I truly intended to dress as simply as you did today. But the Marquis insisted this gown suited me better after seeing how beautiful you looked last time." I couldn't bear to disappoint him. Despite her facade, Belle sensed a jagged edge to Diana's unnatural behavior. It felt as though Diana was desperately trying to mirror her every move. Spotting Gordon, Diana's eyes flared with jealousy. "Even the Duke's own doctor is playing your assistant, how grand." "You're just so lucky," Belle. Gordon quickly intervened, clarifying he was merely there to provide support. "Belle crafted every single item here herself," he stated, though Diana's skeptical smirk remained fixed. Masking her malice as concerned, Diana warned, "Using help is cheating, Belle. One wrong move and you'll be expelled." Her poisonous words instantly ignited a firestorm of whispers among the onlookers. Confronted by Diana's venomous lies, Belle's patience finally reached its absolute limit. To protect the Duke's honor and her own, she stared Diana down, her voice ringing with steel. "Save your concern. I am well aware of the regulations and the consequences of any violation." When Belle didn't flinch, Diana retreated behind a kind reminder, but Belle's competitive fire was now fully ablaze. Promotion was no longer enough. Belle was now determined to seize the top prize for herself. "Report me if you dare, but until then, let us see who truly triumphs in a fair fight." Gordon beamed at Belle's newfound dignity until 30 minutes passed without a single soul approaching their lonely stall. The masses swarmed toward Diana's flashing lights, leaving Belle's side of the aisle hauntingly empty. Not one customer bit despite her sign promising the realm's strongest healing for only 10 gold coins. Arrogant nobles packed Diana's booth so tightly that even the air seemed to struggle to get through. Infuriatingly, Marquis Ɓarelatté himself acted as a barker, herding every wealthy patron directly toward Diana. Gordon paced frantically. A total loss would not only be a failure, but a stain on the Duke's honor. Yet Belle remained an island of calm. Her creations were unparalleled treasures, unlike anything in this world. Surely a discerning eye would recognize their true divine value. Suddenly, the sea of people parted for a formidable noblewoman. Lady 𝐂, the emperor's aunt and high society titan, arrived. The marquis bolted forward shamelessly, shoving aside lesser nobles to clear a path for the imperial guest. With a groveling, sycophantic grin, he desperately guided Lady 𝐂 toward Diana's glittering display. Belle's gaze turned icy. She saw the fading life fire within Lady 𝐂, the inevitable shadow of natural aging. No divine miracle could ever truly defy the absolute ironclad laws of life and death. Spotting Belle's empty stall, Diana's smirk grew sharp. "Belle dear, are you doing quite all right?" she mocked. That desperate jab only exposed Diana's inner panic. Belle countered with a dazzling, radiant smile. "Never better. You'd better try harder." Seeing Belle's unshakable composure, Diana's expression twisted into a dark, hateful scowl. By noon, the sun scorched the earth. The pampered nobles were already wilting and drenched in sweat. Now Belle moved. With Gordon's help, she unleashed her secret weapon, a loudspeaker, to dominate the crowd. "Listen up, the first 10 customers receive a free bottle of my legendary fatigue relief potion." But this surprise was only the beginning of Belle's grand scheme. The marquis sneered at her cheap tricks, but a few curious nobles decided to take a gamble. Instantly, their exhaustion vanished. Word spread like wildfire and a massive crowd swarmed Belle's stall. Watching Belle steal his potential clients, the marquis's face turned an ugly dark shade of purple. "How dare you?" he bellowed. "Are you so jealous of Diana's saintly status that you've resorted to this? Why not compete with healing magic? Instead, you peddle these fake, ridiculous potions to deceive the masses." Belle remained unfazed. His loud tantrum was perfect. It drew the attention of every single guest in the venue. The marquis raged on, accusing Belle of being a fraud and a common low-class deceiver. Unbothered, Belle simply pointed to the clear warning label printed on every single bottle. "This is for fatigue only. It is not a miracle cure for serious wounds or deep-seated illnesses." Humiliated and enraged, the marquis raised his hand to strike, but a freezing, authoritative voice stopped him cold. The Duke had arrived. A heavy silence fell instantly as the marquis's bravado vanished like mist. He slunk away in shame. Seeing the Duke and Edwin arrive, Belle's heart swelled with genuine joy. The Duke inspected the potions, learning she'd crafted them all alone, his admiration for her talent soared. He didn't hesitate, tossing a heavy sack of gold coins directly onto her wooden counter. "I'll take 100 bottles, Belle was stunned. That was the absolute maximum gold limit allowed. "But you won't have anything left for other stalls," both the Duke and Edwin replied in perfect unison. "Yours is the only one we want." Suddenly, Lady 𝐂 approached Belle with a sharp, curious gaze. After greeting the Duke, Lady 𝐂 didn't hesitate. She slapped the marquis's intrusive hand away with disdain. She bluntly stated Diana's magic had failed. Just as Belle knew, divine healing cannot stop time's steady march. Hearing of Joshua's miraculous recovery, the Duke took the chance to introduce Belle as the mastermind. "Everything is thanks to this young child's truly extraordinary skills." Intrigued by a potion-making saint candidate, Lady 𝐂 accepted a bottle offered thoughtfully by young Edwin. She finished it in one gulp. Sensing her chance, Belle finally revealed her ultimate secret trump card. "A special gift for you, a mist crafted from the rarest, most legendary fairy grass in existence. It reverses the signs of aging." The surrounding noblewomen immediately erupted into frantic, excited whispers. Gordon chimed in, expertly hyping up the magical beauty-enhancing properties of the mystical rare herb. Anticipation peaked. Driven by curiosity, Lady 𝐂 closed her eyes as the cooling mist brushed her face. A heavenly scent filled the air. Now they only had to wait 1 hour for the results. But when the price of 50 gold coins was mentioned, Lady 𝐂's face suddenly went dark. "That is far too expensive. Buying just one bottle would deplete half of her family's total budget." Belle's price was a tactical strike to crush Diana. She needed 500 gold coins immediately. "Give me 1 hour, Belle stated boldly. "You only pay if you are truly satisfied with the results. If it fails, I won't take a penny." Such fierce confidence earned Lady 𝐂's immediate deep respect. She admired Belle's decisive spirit. "Very well then. Let us see if you can perform miracles." In her past life, Belle never understood this woman. Now, the success of this deal rested with fate. Meanwhile, back at the stall, another 50 bottles of her potion had already flown off the shelves. Earnings reached 200 gold coins. Belle pulled Edwin into a joyful embrace. "Our 500 gold goal is close." Surveying the crowd, Belle realized the Duke had vanished. Edwin smiled. Father is busy networking with the high nobility. Belle wondered why he chose formal duties over relaxing with his own circle of friends. Edwin's gaze shifted to the Marquis, whose expression was as dark as a bottomless pit. I must stay. Someone looks ready to cause you trouble. Just as Edwin feared, the Marquis was spinning a plot. With the Duke's backing, Belle's products were flying off the shelves with ease. Suddenly, Principal Laura approached with a cold glare. Someone had reported Belle for a violation. A fine was now mandatory. Shock rippled through the onlookers. Edwin's voice turned icy as he demanded to know her meaning. Unfazed Laura produced the festival regulations and pointed to a specific restrictive clause. Only one adult assistant is permitted. Edwin's blood boiled at the blatant unfairness of the situation. He pointed at the Marquis, who was aiding Diana. What about him? He isn't an official assistant either. The Marquis is merely socializing. You, however, are directly handling sales for this girl. Belle saw the triumphant wicked smirk playing on the Marquis's lips. He was the puppet master. To protect her business, Belle suppressed her fury and chose to swallow her anger. Edwin offered a heavy, guilt-ridden apology to her. But Belle knew their support was her shield against the Marquis's cruelty. She offered him a reassuring look. Don't blame yourself. Having you here is my joy. Now go rest and enjoy time with your friends. Once Edwin left, Laura demanded 50 gold coins. This daylight robbery left Belle and Gordon fuming with rage. It was a targeted trap. Laura threw down an arrogant ultimatum: pay up or face immediate disqualification. A curious crowd began to gather in the shadows. To save her reputation, Belle gritted her teeth and reached for her purse. She couldn't let them win. 50 gold, here it is. Suddenly, Lady Yun appeared, tossing a heavy pouch right into Laura's hands. The lady was radiant. Her wrinkles had vanished into a stunning, youthful glow. She looked 20 years younger. She commanded Laura to vanish and stop harassing Belle's flourishing business. Even Belle stood frozen, awestruck by the miraculous transformation on Lady Yun's face. The watching noblewomen descended like a tidal wave, desperate to claim the magical fairy herb spray. 10 bottles vanished in a heartbeat. Only a few drops of the universal potion remained. It was a landslide victory. Profits skyrocketed to an unbelievable 700 gold coins. Gordon beamed with pride. That'll show that wretched Marquis who's truly in charge. With her mission accomplished, Belle slipped away toward the orphanage, using a restroom break as her clever cover. Beyond the sales, Belle harbored a secret objective for attending this grand festival. She needed the temple library's forbidden knowledge. While the staff was distracted, she vanished into the silent archives. Finally, her fingers brushed against the ancient scriptures of temple history. She had to uncover the truth behind her rebirth and find the heart she lost in her past life. Belle moved like a shadow through the sacred library. In the dusty pages, she found Saintess 𝐂𝐨𝐫, a woman whose tragic fate mirrored her own perfectly. 𝐂𝐴 was the first to trade her heart to the goddess, to turn back time. Centuries ago, when darkness threatened the empire, 𝐂𝐴 stood as the realm's divine shield. She offered her beating heart to goddess 𝐅𝐵 and successfully rewound the spinning gears of fate. With that time, she purged the demons and led the temple to a legendary victory. After the war, she founded an orphanage for the children left behind in the ruins. But tragedy struck. At only 23, the saintess suddenly breathed her last breath. At her funeral, the world learned her secret: she had no heart. The history ended there. Belle's mind raced. The founder of this era was dead, yet her cause of death was missing. Yet 𝐂𝐴 had survived for years without a heart. A flicker of hope ignited in Belle's soul. Her life was spared for the moment. 𝐂𝐴 had offered her very heart to the goddess to turn back the hands of fate. Where was her own heart now? Belle recalled forbidden texts mentioning the primeval altar. That sacred ancient site was surely where the ritual of sacrifice took place in the temple. Clues surely awaited her there. Yet Belle was trapped in a child's body, making a solo journey to those distant highlands an impossible dream. Swallowing her disappointment, she resolved to wait. A better chance would surely reveal itself in the coming days. As twilight fell, Belle exited the archives only to stumble upon a cruel scene. A group of bullies cornered a lone boy. It was Ishmael, the boy silenced by the trauma of the temple's dark confessional room. Stripped of his powers and voice, he had become the easy prey of every spiteful child in the orphanage. Their blows were relentless, yet Ishmael endured. To him, physical pain was nothing compared to the suffocating darkness of that cursed room. Fearing for his life, Belle masked her presence and cried out, "The teacher is coming, quick run away now." Terrified of punishment, the panicked bullies scattered like rats into the darkness. Belle knelt to heal the fading boy. Ishmael blinked, recognizing her immediately. This was the girl notorious for her endless playful mischief in the orphanage. Discovering she had endured the same torture, Ishmael's fractured thoughts spun. How could she remain so lively while he was so broken? Why did her eyes still burn with radiance while he was drowning in a bottomless sea of hopelessness? Driven by a desperate dying instinct, he lunged forward, clutching Belle's wrist as if she were his final lifeline in the dark. "Please, save me." Only then did she truly see him, the ash-brown hair and those piercing light brown eyes. Suddenly, his youthful face merged with a powerful ghost from her past, the future Pope Montes III. In her former life after the Pope's passing, a high priest was favored as the strongest candidate to take the Holy Throne. However, without the sacred papal signet ring, the candidate's claim to the throne remained nothing but a hollow, unreachable dream. Amidst the chaos, the late Pope's adopted son emerged. Clutching the ring, he boldly proclaimed that he was the rightful new sovereign. That boy was Ishmael. Alongside the crown prince and his brother, he was destined to be a central figure and a male lead candidate in this world's tale. Back in her past life, Belle had rarely interacted with him, so his true identity had remained a complete mystery until this moment. Seeing him again stirred such complex emotions that she was at a loss for words. Years ago, right before the saintess election, the newly appointed young pope had publicly declared his total support for Diana. Belle had been livid, convinced the temple was rigged against her. Ishmael had looked down on her then, sneering at her as nothing more than a common, ordinary orphan. "Your holy aura is non-existent," he'd mocked. "Did you truly think a commoner like you is qualified to become a saintess? Look at Diana. She heals the dying and battles monsters at the border while you have done nothing to fulfill your duties as a candidate." In those days, Belle saw only injustice then. Now she finally realized the truth. Ishmael backed Diana because he knew his own light had been stolen, making him fundamentally unfit for his own holy position as pope. He was simply playing the cold game of religious politics. As her magic took hold, Ishmael's eyes slowly fluttered open. Suddenly, the temple bells chimed, signaling that their brief time together was coming to an end. Seeing him stable, Belle turned to leave, but a small hand gripped her dress tightly. "Wait, let me repay this debt." The silent boy had spoken. Belle froze in disbelief. "Had his muteness been a mask, I had no other choice," he whispered softly. "I needed to survive that hell. You understand me, don't you? You want to crush Diana's perfection just as much as I do. Am I wrong?"